Thanks for joining, everybody. So James Mingard, Head of Retail. I know a number of the names in the attendee list today. There's a few I don't, so good to meet you all. It's going to be a really exciting session here today. So I'm going to take you through just the first few minutes, take you through the agenda for the session today, just a little bit about Maintel, talk through some of our very key partners that are on the call today, and talk you through what we're going to cover for the hour that we've got. It's quite a condensed agenda. So we'll take you through that. So James Mingard, Head of Retail, been with Maintel for about 5.5 years, been in a sales role for about 3. We went through a significant change within Maintel starting 2020, Jan 1st, where we've moved to a verticalized model. The reason why we've done that is it was conscious that specifically in retail and the challenges within retail, that we really needed to understand our customers and the challenges they therefore had significantly better. And therefore, by becoming into a verticalized model, it gave us the ability to become a lot more specialist and add more value to our customers. And hopefully you'll see some of the value that we're trying to bring following the output of today's session. We've got 2 of our very specialist partners on today. So we've got Cisco Meraki on the call. So we've got Joe from Meraki and David from Everyangle, who are going to talk through the key focus of today's session, which is how you can leverage a number of very exciting outcomes to help you achieve a number of things using Meraki cameras and Everyangle software. That will take about 30 to 35 minutes. We will then hand over to Tim Cotty from Maintel, who will talk you through, which is a bit of a best kept secret from us, some of the really interesting things that we can do using our 35 odd application and system developers within the organization to, again, help bring some additional value from the outcomes that we can offer. We do have a quiz. We've kept it quite short, 3 questions, multiple choice answers. The interesting thing from the back end of the quiz, based on the right answers and the quickest responses, there will be a free proof of value that we will put in place for you, which will be delivered by Everyangle, Maintel and Meraki, where we will choose some key applications and we will implement that in your stores. So that'll be really exciting. And then we'll take a number of questions at the back end of the quiz. Just in terms of some cadence for the call, before I hand over to some of our colleagues, all attendees will be muted throughout the call. If you have any questions, on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a question box. So if you can submit your questions in there, I will open up at the end of the call and we'll go through any questions that we've taken. Just skip slide. So just a little bit about Maintel for the people on the call that aren't aware. So Maintel are a cloud and communications organization that help our customers to transform their workplace, deliver exceptional customer service, and secure access to their applications and data. I think most of you are probably aware of this, but the way that we do that is by leveraging our 3 pillars. Our 3 pillars are digital workplace technology, customer experience, and secure connectivity. What we're going to talk about today really falls into our connectivity pillar, and we'll get into a bit of that throughout the call. But I think the really important point here is that we really, again, want to help our retail businesses deliver better value within their stores, have a much greater insight into what's happening within their bricks and mortar locations, make sure that we can help you in your warehouse and distribution facilities know that you're operating in a safe and secure environment, people are adhering to the right security policies that are in place, and we can help you drive up the experience that you offer. At this point, I'm going to hand over, because we've got, again, a really sharp agenda. So I'm going to hand over to Joe to talk you through the Meraki cameras, and David will also intervene in this section around the Everyangle software. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, James. Really appreciate the opportunity to spend 30 minutes with all of the great retailers that have joined here. Really appreciate the time today. I'm Joe Weiss, and I'm the practice lead for Meraki's Internet of Things division. So today I'm going to take you through a little bit of what we built, why we built it, and then show you some of the really cool stuff that you can do. Now, I know that some of this might seem like a bit of science fiction, but I assure you, this is all real. This is all deployed in customer environments today, and it really works. But let me tell you guys a story of how we got here. And it started with 2 engineers that were super passionate about solving problems. And one of the problems that they had is that their CCTV, when they needed to get footage from it because a couple iPads had gotten stolen, they found out that it was quite a process at Cisco. And that's not unlike any of the other customers I've dealt with. And when they wanted to retrieve this footage, the security team said, yep, sure, no problem. It's just going to be 7 to 10 business days. And in San Francisco, 7 to 10 business days means that those iPads have been sold on 3 times by then. And so they got really, really frustrated and set out to build the next generation of CCTV. So they put a proposal together, and at the very top of the proposal, I kid you not, was this exact heading. We're building a unicorn with the unicorn emoji. Because in the Bay Area, a unicorn is a startup that's valued in excess of $1 billion within 3 years of being founded. And that's really what our engineering team set out to do, was to become a new Meraki inside of Meraki. And so we started to look at this space, and we landed on Nest, because these guys really revolutionized consumer CCTV. And what Nest did that was different is, before Nest, you needed to have a man in a van come around, and they'd run special wiring to get CCTV at your house. And then these guys came out, and they were like, you know, if you just plug our camera in and connect it to your Wi-Fi, you can watch video on your phone. And that just revolutionized the space. But in the enterprise space, we're not so lucky. Painful reality is this technology really hasn't moved on from the days of Betamax and VHS. Now we record on hard disks or solid state drives. But ultimately, the architecture is fundamentally the same. And when you look at this industry as a whole, it's really, really complicated. These are photos we took at the latest IFSEC. And what you'll see is vendors you might know, like Bosch and RaySharp, and then hundreds of other vendors there that you probably don't know and will never hear of again. But all of these solutions depend on one thing, and that's these. That's boxes of infrastructure, giant boxes of infrastructure that are inflexible, that have to be managed, have to be updated and patched. And you know what? They're really complicated. And there's a whole host of reasons that when we talk to customers about these things, they just didn't like them. Hard drives fail, RAID arrays get corrupted, can't put them on the network because they consume too much bandwidth, they're not patched all the time. Like, the list just goes on and on and on. And so we started to look at, like, what does a distributed CCTV environment look like? And turns out it's really complicated. And this slide here is really like best case scenario. This is, I inherited the very best thing from my asset protection or loss prevention team, and I can now manage it differently. Well, we've seen something like this before with Wi-Fi. And Meraki came and solved that problem by building simple autonomous access points that are controlled from the cloud. And so we figured if we could do to CCTV what we did with Wi-Fi, we'd be on to a big hit, because it turns out customers really like things that are simple to manage and easy to control. So we looked at this problem and we were like, well, it's pretty similar, except there's one major difference. With Wi-Fi, you pass packets through the access point, and that's all fine. But with CCTV, you have to store the video somewhere. So we went back to our friends at Nest and said, well, how do they do it? And we realized they put everything in the cloud. So we started by building a prototype that put everything in the cloud. And very quickly, we realized that you just are going to need bigger pipes to do that. And businesses need those pipes everywhere. And unfortunately, they're just not available. And so we rounded it out with looking at a better box, you know, like a hard disk array that could be remotely managed from the cloud and monitored. But the honest truth is, after we went through this evaluation, we realized that, again, nobody had anything good to say about managing infrastructure. And they just said, we've spent all of our time getting servers and storage out of our branches, and now you want us to put another box in. And so we started to refocus on our core product philosophy, which is, how do we solve problems without just building more and more features, and to use our expertise in distributed environments and, more importantly, in UX design to deliver a really compelling solution. And so we launched 4 camera models. These are our 2nd generation models, and they'll store up to 90 days of footage actually on the camera, because all of our cameras have edge compute and edge storage built right in. Now, our most interesting camera for retailers is the MV32. That's an ultra compact, VR enabled fisheye camera. And I know I just talked about like not building features, and now we're talking about VR, but that solves a very real world problem for my retail customers. Visual merchandisers set a VM guideline, and they need to be able to see that it's being followed in the branches. Now, in order to do this, historically, they'd get in a car and travel or ask a store manager to FaceTime or send them pictures, and that's not really great. But now they can put a VR headset on powered by Oculus, and they can be the eye in the sky in viewing the camera in real time or retrospectively. So being able to look at customer journeys and understand how those displays are being interacted with can be quite compelling for that team. The 12 and the 22, those are your fixed lens and varifocal, and the 72x is outdoor. Now, one thing that stitches all of these together is a common chipset, and more importantly, they all have Wi-Fi. So when you're looking to retrofit your existing stores with new smart technology, you don't need to run new structured wiring to these cameras. If you have analog cameras, you take them down, put the new ones up, and you use a special converter that takes the analog power, converts it to PoE, and the cameras then use Wi-Fi for their backhaul. Very, very compelling and saves a lot of cost in delivering that. Now, how the architecture works, like I said, everything is stored on the camera. So edge compute, edge storage. All the analytics are done in the camera themselves. All the intelligence and the AI is on the camera. That means no servers, no banks of storage, a really lightweight and easy deployment. And then, to be honest, like they use less than 50 kilobits of upstream per camera when they're not being viewed remotely. Think about that. These cameras are so lightweight and give you so much power at your fingertips. And I'll talk to you about some of the really cool things that you can do when analytics are computed at the edge. Now, if you're a store manager or loss prevention person and you want to view this video locally, you can do that no problem on a tablet, on a laptop, on a mobile device, and you won't consume any WAN bandwidth additional to what the camera streams normally. But if you're remote, your VM team, your asset protection doing an investigation, will create a secure tunnel from the camera through the Meraki cloud, allowing you to access that video anywhere. And when we say secure, we mean it. At Cisco, we don't have the luxury that other CCTV vendors might have, where we can run unsecure code. In fact, our cameras are built from the ground up to be some of the most secure devices we make. They have TPM chips in them, which basically means that you can't run any code that isn't signed by Cisco, which means that they only run the firmware that we support. And if you really want to have a heart attack, just Google CCTV firmware exploits and you'll see why we did this. We also encrypt all of the video on the camera at rest and during transit. And all of the management data is accessed only through the Meraki dashboard, which supports two-factor authentication and all of the great things that cybersecurity specialists love to have in any product. Now, the dirty little secret of CCTV is that the majority of the video is never watched. Now that we've deployed tens of thousands of cameras globally, we know definitively that less than 0.5% of all video recorded is reviewed. Less than 0.5%. Yet businesses and public sector entities spend more on their CCTV than they do their actual network and receive very little value in return. So we start to think about this equation. At Meraki, we felt compelled to build smart cameras that could do more. Things like provide insights over time and give you heat maps that give you the motion in your stores that you can provide to the VM team. Better understanding customer behavioral patterns, giving you trends that show you how many people have come in the door and really understand their flow. But the really cool stuff is being able to provide context and trigger actions in other systems. A great example of this is we work with a global coffee retailer. And when you go into the store and you buy, say, 4 cups of coffee and 4 scones, you pay with cash. You go to the end counter, you take your receipt, you pick your beverages up, and you leave. But you leave your receipt on the counter because you don't need it. It's not valuable to you. That barista on the end counter takes that receipt, and instead of putting it in the bin, they put it in their pocket. Because a few hours later, they log on the till when no one's around, and they process a return saying, bad milk, old scones, whatever it is, and that money comes out of the till and goes into their pocket. Now, they tried to solve this many times before, but it was always massively expensive. And the reason for that is they have no remote access to any of the CCTV in any of their stores across the world. And so if you wanted to do an investigation to look at this fraudulent behavior, you had to go on site. And you had to review the video in 2 or 4x and just watch for this to happen. Not really effective use of time. And the values were so low that they weren't really compelled to do anything about it. But we're doing their global network. And they said, well, Meraki, if you could solve this one problem, we estimate that it's worth £15 million a year globally to us. And so we listened and learned a little bit about what happens. And when we found out that actually there's not a customer present when they do these fraudulent returns, it was actually quite simple to solve. You see, because the cameras understand and can classify and detect people or the absence of people. So what happens now is when their POS system goes to make a return, it makes an API call to the Meraki camera. It says, hey, Meraki camera, is there a person behind the till and a person in front of the till? And if there's not a person in the customer zone, then a link to the video is with a copy of the transaction is sent to the regional loss prevention manager. And that's just an automated workflow that was built. Think about the power of what you can do when you can trigger other systems with the presence or absence of other people. You can start solving problems that previously have never been able to be solved before. And just like every other piece of Meraki technology, when you plug our cameras in, they work. And they don't require anything else beyond a bit of power and connectivity to get going. Now our cameras, well, they can tell the difference between people and vehicles, and they get smarter over time. Because they're cloud connected, we can continually improve our machine learning model and provide updates and new features over the course of the lifespan of the device. Now, when we launched vehicle detection and recognition, it could just tell if it was a vehicle, and that's 4 wheels and a body moving down a street. Now it knows the difference between multiple vehicle types, and that will just get more intelligent over time. Now, when we talk about things that we deliver, I know I said we don't focus on building features, but the reality is we build a lot of features very quickly because this product is by far one of the most invested products at Cisco. It is now, our Meraki camera business is now larger than Meraki was when Cisco acquired it. And one of the things that we've just announced is that all of the cameras that people have been buying all have Bluetooth low energy radios in them. So what does that mean? What can you do with that? Well, when you pair them with Meraki access points or on their own, you can start to scan for Bluetooth devices, which means that you can do asset tracking. Maybe you want to put some BLE low energy tags on trolleys or baskets and track them around the business without actually having to look at video. Or maybe you just want to track high value scanners that cost thousands of pounds that tend to go missing. And being able to leverage Meraki cameras as well as Meraki access points in a unified radio platform delivers a lot of value because it's a single data stream to be able to get all of this positioning data. Now, one of the most important things that we've built in the last year is our ability to integrate into other systems. So we've announced in February, and it's generally available now, that we support RTSP on our 2nd generation cameras. And what that means is if you've got an older DVR, NVR, or a computer vision server that you want to process a video stream through, not a problem at all. You can take the camera and send a stream to 2 different devices, as well as record the video on the camera. And if you need to archive in the cloud, you can do that at the same time. And so what you really have is the ability to do anything that you'd want to be able to do with a traditional CCTV camera, but so much more. Because our cameras all have computer vision built into them. And so what we're doing over and over again, every single day, is feeding pictures and video of what people look like and what vehicles look like into our computer vision algorithm. And that's things like people carrying bags, jumping up and down, bending over, because it turns out people come in all different shapes and sizes, and it's quite challenging for a computer vision model to be able to understand all of those things. And so we continually train and update and improve that. And you're the benefit of that with our cameras. Now, what that enables is you to ask the camera via simple APIs with third-party applications, like how many people were here yesterday at 2 p.m.? Or take a picture, send it to a computer vision service in the cloud, process it for all the metadata, and tell me how many people are here right now, what their age and gender is. And I'll leave it to David to talk through some of that really cool stuff that we can do with the cameras, because Everyangle makes computer vision applications possible. Now, we didn't just stop at good enough when it comes to our cameras. We actually have included things like a Lux monitor. And to be honest, I didn't really understand the massive value in this until I started talking with a range of customers. And what I realized is we can control things beyond just smart blinds and smart lighting based on the lighting conditions in the environment. But you can start to do A/B testing. If we bring the light level down by 20% in the entrance, what does that do for customer flow? Does it feel more welcoming? Because we can actually measure the response and look at the customer flow. So you can start to do really interesting stuff with tweaking your lighting and lighting conditions to help drive a more satisfying customer experience. And now we can absolutely integrate with any of the third-party computer vision services. So a lot of people haven't seen what you can do with computer vision. So I'm going to give you a little taste, and then David's going to give you the whole meal. So what you can do with computer vision is you can send video or images to AWS Recognition, Azure Cognitive Services. There's a whole host of these TV platforms in the cloud. And when you do that, it can work out what's actually in the video or image. Now, in this case, on the left side, what I see because I'm a human and I know these objects is there's a picture of Todd Nightingale, good friend of mine, a Meraki foam finger, a Sonos speaker, a Meraki gnome, a baseball, and a Lego Architect San Francisco scene. Now, I know those things because I've seen them before, I'm a human, and I can classify and detect those. Now, computer vision sees things a little bit differently, but also delivers a very powerful, compelling piece of metadata that you can action. First thing it sees is that there's a human, a person, they're wearing glasses, they're male, 35 to 52, and they're emotionally happy. And it can read the text on the image, Meraki and Sonos. So you can start to do things if you're a fashion retailer, like understand the brands that are coming in your store, understand the age and demographics, the emotional state when they come versus when they leave. Extremely powerful intelligence. It's taking what you can get online and allowing you to get some of the same type of analytics and intelligence in your brick and mortar stores. So very, very powerful, very compelling. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see a solution that is an open ANPR solution. Now, why do we talk about ANPR, automated number plate recognition? Well, because I've got retailers that are using this today to enable better click and collect experiences. As retailers look to deliver differentiated experiences, specifically now under what's going on with COVID, being able to identify someone's vehicles pulled in the car park and then alert the store staff that they're there and waiting for their items, groceries, whatever that is, can give a far better and enhanced experience that, leaves customers feeling like they've had something special happen. They pulled into the car park, the store knew exactly who it was, and they brought the items out. Now, I don't want to steal any more of David's thunder because he's got a lot of great stuff to show you. So I'm going to pass you over to David, and he's going to talk you through what we're doing with Everyangle.
Thanks very much, Joe. Appreciate that. So that's a great introduction, I think, which really lays the foundation and the framework for everything that is different, that is cool about the MV platform. And it dovetails really well with where we hopefully add some additional value. So firstly, I'd just really like to thank everyone for taking the time to join today. Let me tell you a little bit about Everyangle. We are a Cisco Meraki technology partner that launched just around about 10 months ago. I'm just getting a prompt here to share my webcam, so I'm going to have to impose my happy face on you for a little bit, and I'm going to take around about 10 minutes of your time or so just to give you a range on that. So Everyangle, as I said, we're a Cisco Meraki technology partner, launched around 10 months ago, and we exclusively develop computer vision applications for the Cisco Meraki MV platform. We don't work with any other vendor. just with Meraki and exclusively on the MV platform. And we always stress MV as a platform for some of the points that Joe mentioned. Yes, it looks like a smart camera and a really nice small form factor one, but it's all of these additional sensors on the device. The light sensor, the microphone, the BLE capabilities, the temperature gauge, the outdoor model. We use all of these sensors together with the Meraki API to be able to extract data off the devices, process and analyze that, and deliver it back to you, the customer, through a series of vertical focused productized applications. What do I mean by that? We build applications that do very specific things, help you with specific challenges or deliver outcomes in retail or manufacturing or construction or oil and gas. It's not about general capabilities. And by productized, we mean applications that do what they say in the tin, don't require any custom software development, have fixed pricing, are rapidly deployable, and you can deploy them at scale. So you can actually be live within minutes. You just need to take your Meraki dashboard API key, bring that to our platform, plug it in, choose which cameras you actually want to go and deploy our applications on, and they are live within minutes. So next slide there, please. Joe, if you wouldn't mind, because I think you're driving. Yeah, so this really the kind of key theme that we'll talk about for the next couple of minutes is how can we help create a situation where you have a single platform to invest in, but a platform that gives you multiple valuable outcomes on day one and every day thereafter. So I'm going to give you a really short whistle-stop tour across some of the applications, productized applications that we have available today. There's an awful lot more in the works. There's a tremendous amount of activity going on in the background, but what I'm going to talk about today are applications that can actually be deployed today. So no science fiction. So when we started out looking at retail, the emphasis here was there seemed to be an inequity, an imbalance, in the sense that you could be a teenager in your bedroom with a laptop, open up an e-commerce website using something like Shopify, selling t-shirts from China, and you could know more about the profile and behavior of your customers than a multi-million-pound brick and mortar retailer. That just struck us as being a real area that was ripe for disruption. And when we spoke with retailers and just even focused on traditional footfall counting technologies, no retailer put their hand up and said, I am absolutely delighted with my existing footfall counting tech. It's really good value for money. It gives me really rich data. Can I please buy more of it? We did not hear that. What we heard was we get inaccurate data. We get it's very poor in terms of richness. It's inflexible. It hasn't innovated a lot. Generally, we're using infrared beams, pressure mats, thermal imaging cameras. How could we know more? And particularly as more and more brick and mortar retailers are also, have experience now with the kind of data sets that they're getting from online and e-commerce, they were seeing this imbalance themselves. So at a very high level, one of our design principles is being able to put value in your hands very simply and very rapidly. And what that means is if we can deploy even a single MV device at an entrance, displace what you're doing for your current footfall counting, and so that we can then layer on top of that not just who's coming in accurately, but also tell you about gender and age, so you can see how that varies throughout time of day, day of week, but also if you deploy across multiple locations, across format of store, high street, shopping center, retail outlet, you can start to get a much more granular understanding of who is actually coming in store, getting away from this idea that we have one single target audience, because the reality is for who's coming in across your store network and estate exists across a spectrum, and understanding how that spectrum sits across the different formats of stores and by different data, rural, urban settings, for example, helps you better merchandise and understand what you should actually have in that store. And then equally, if you go to another level of sophistication, where you then look at integrating with other systems that you have, such as point of sale, we can position cameras at point of sale so that if you're using an anyway reasonably modern point of sale system, ideally where there's an API we can integrate with, when a transaction's initiated on the point of sale system, we're taking image snapshots from the cameras targeted at the customer side of the cashier desk, so that we're then actually associating gender and age with product code. So now you not only have a really granular understanding of who's coming in to all of your stores across network and by time series, you also have that same level of granular understanding for who is buying what. And that helps you understand what product lines to hold your visual merchandising to account, and ultimately better serve your customer and give them a more relevant experience when they come in store. Next slide there, please, Joe. Completely different application, suspicious person detection, something that we originally developed for a large format grocery retailer in the UK and has been taken out across a number of different convenience retailers. This does what it says on the tin. It's basically bad guy detection, right? It identifies people coming in through a door wearing any object that conceals their face, any obvious unconcealed weapons. Again, back to that design principle of putting value in your hands quickly. You can just deploy this on a single camera, and you can get alerts, text message, WhatsApp, WebEx Teams, Slack, or you can step it up through a level of sophistication and integrate with IoT smart speakers and security lights, right, to make it really obvious when an event is happening, or even go up another level and integrate with door access control. The key point here is that this application can be delivered on the exact same camera that you're using for your demographic footfall analysis, getting back to that theme of a single platform with multiple outcomes. Next slide there, please, Joe. Warehouse intelligence. Again, we started off doing a lot of work in retail, but obviously larger retailers very commonly have warehouse logistics operations. So this is how we kind of moved into that area. And really just a couple of key takeaways from here. On the right-hand side, we're really we're reporting on warehouse velocity, the movement and patterns of people and objects throughout that to help optimize your layout and where you actually are holding stock, and time and motion analysis, etc. On the left-hand side, health and safety implications and security implications. So, for example, an awful lot of warehouse operators that we speak with will have policies where they prohibit staff using mobile phones or drinking beverages while they're walking through the warehouse aisles because it's a potential distraction. You may not see oncoming vehicles. Or security. There's one particular example that sticks out in my mind of an electronics distributor where they have a lot of high value, small format items, smartphones, tablets, very easy to pocket those. They have a lot of seasonal staff at different times in the year, so they don't know everyone by face. So the ability for them to be able to identify anyone who's using a personal bag, and we can differentiate between, you know, briefcase, rucksack, handbag, plastic bag, and to be able to pinpoint that can be very compelling. Next slide, please, Joe. PPE detection. Okay, so again, the point about PPE detection, the same camera that you're deploying over the entrance into that warehouse, you can deploy PPE detection, and you can toggle the items on and off that you're looking for on a camera by camera basis, because in one warehouse environment, maybe there's certain PPE that's required. In another area of the warehouse, maybe it's different PPE that's required. And again, at a very simple level, the camera is, and the Everyangle application is searching for certain PPE elements. If they're not found, generate an alert. You can go to another level of sophistication, integrate with door access control, but it's on the exact same platform. So that whole idea of one platform, many outcomes. Next slide, please, Joe. Fire detection. This started out as more of a, I will say, like an intellectual exercise on whether or not this was possible. We were asked by a customer, but it actually found legs through a large utility company in the States. And basically they have a lot of unmanned locations, and they have fire control systems, fire detection systems. This is not designed to replace those. It's just to try and give you an idea of some of the capabilities. And this uses the light sensor on board the camera. The idea here was to try and eliminate time wasted through a lot of false alerts. So analog systems, you can get a lot of spurious alerts saying, hey, there's a fire there. Turns out there isn't, but the only way for you to verify that is by actually sending a person out there. So at best, you waste their time. At worst, you're putting them in harm's way. So what we do here is we use a sudden, rapid change in light level to trigger an image snapshot from the cameras, which we then take onto our platform and we inspect. We do what's called scene inspection. So it's pixel level analysis to look for patterns that look similar to fire, flames, etc. And then we then provide a confirmation or all clear message to support what the analog device is telling you. And this has all sorts of implications in terms of in-store, in retail, integrating with other IoT devices, whether it's environmental controls like heating, lighting, air quality, different things like that. Next slide, please. This is just really quick to say, typically speaking, how we look to try and visualize and map out all of the different good things that we can do for you and what makes most relevance is get a floor plan for a typical site, list out your wish list of outcomes, filter that by saying, what can we do out of the box straight away? What requires some tweaking? What's brand new custom development? And then visually map out all of the different cameras with the Everyangle applications that are required to deliver each one of those particular outcomes. And that lets you really easily in rank order see what outcomes are going to require a lot of investment, and then challenge whether there's really sufficient business value, and then focus on those ones where you're getting that kind of really good mix Venn diagram style of, low effort, high reward, and focus on those first and then build out from there. Next slide, please, Joe. So just to talk very briefly then around COVID-19, the work that we've done there, the massive implications and challenge that faces not just retail, but certainly very pronounced for retail. And around about 4 weeks ago, we started looking at this in conjunction with Cisco and Meraki, and doing a lot of work with Joe Weiss and his team, and saying, what could we bring to market using computer vision and MV that might be able to help? And the very first thought that occurred to us was, well, maybe we could look to try and actually measure the distance between people. And the other thought we had was, well, actually, maybe we don't need to do that. Maybe we just need to control the number of people in a space or place and make sure that doesn't go beyond an unsafe level. So before we went and built anything, we had a look at video footage, historic video footage we had from retail customers we deployed other applications to pre-COVID. And two things came out of that analysis very, very quickly. In large format grocery retail, which is where we did this analysis, we found that 80% of social collisions, now by social collision, I mean when two people enter that same 7-foot distance, or whatever the guidance might be in the future, if it comes down to 5 feet or whatever. But when two people enter that same 7-foot distance, we call that a social collision. And we found out that in large format grocery retail, more than 80% of those social collisions happen within 20% of the floor area: entrance, exit, checkouts, and queues. So if you want to measure the distance between people, you have to measure the distance across 100% of the floor area. And that means deploying a density of camera across the other remaining 80% of the floor area to only go and identify what will be less than 20% of those collisions. So it's not a good fit in terms of investment versus ROI that you get out of that. The second learning that we took from it very rapidly was, how long do these social collisions typically occur for? Now, we're not saying the research that we've done translates through necessarily to commercial office space or other environments, because we don't have enough data yet to support that. But in grocery retail, we saw that over 75% of these collisions occur for 10 seconds or less. So the kind of silly example I always give there is, well, imagine if Joe and I are down in the breakfast cereal aisle and we're both going for, the same box of cornflakes, and we send an alert to a store manager saying, hey, there's two people here who have a social collision at the moment, because we're not able to say it's Joe or David because we're anonymous, unlike maybe a commercial office space where we're badging in and out. What can the store manager actually do with that? You can't exactly go and send the SWAT team down to the breakfast aisle to break the two of us up, because by the time you've gotten the alert, the event is actually over. So that other design principle we have of what are you looking to detect, what's the level of detectability, how actionable is the information once you detect it, just didn't deliver on that mark. So if you wouldn't mind just going to the next slide, please, Joe. What we have done is putting this in place through a large grocery retailer in the UK, and also with a large federal agency in America, is to deploy a model where we have cameras over the entrance and exit to a space. We determine what the maximum safe occupancy is for that space, the number of people who can be there, and we count the entrances and exits against that. We then deploy some really simple self-service signage outside of the entrance into that retail premises. And you are allowing the end customer to make an informed decision, is it safe for me to enter or not? Red means stop, green means go. Now, the other really interesting thing that came out of this was not our idea originally. Originally, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please, Joe. Our idea was we would give this more full-on analytic-style dashboard, put that on a tablet or a mobile device, give it to the security guard who was on the door, and as opposed to using mental arithmetic, they would know in a more data-driven manner who they can let in or not to the store. But when we put this out there, the grocery retailer in the UK, who's got more than 2,500 locations, the feedback they gave to us within 24 hours was, really good idea. it's going to break down in terms of cost, unless we have a way to actually eliminate a large part of the additional cost we have now from extra security guards and redeployed retail staff on the doors. We want to be diligent, we want to keep our customers safe and our staff safe, but we are not going to be able to do this in the long term. And they found out, they shared a cost exercise with us where they understood that per door in each location, the cost of manning an extra 12-hour shift at that door was between 24 and 25,000 pounds per year. A huge cost when you break it out over the network. So by deploying that self-service, self-adherence model, you strip away a large part of that additional cost. You give actionable information. You can look at this network-wide, see which stores are the repeat offenders, which ones are actually operating well, and then you team up this high-tech solution with some really low-tech mechanisms in store, but ones that are very effective. And we've seen through the video they're effective, like stickers on the floor to show what a 7-foot or 6.5-foot distance looks like. So that's just to give you a quick overview of some of the applications, some of the things that we're doing. Really interested and happy to answer any questions you may have throughout the rest of the time that we have, or indeed any follow-ups offline. So I'll hand back over to the team, and thank you very much for your time.
Tim, sorry to interrupt, you're still muted.
Apologies for being muted. So I'm Tim Cotty, Application and Integration Consultant here at Maintel. My job here today really is to just expand on some of the capabilities that Maintel have that maybe some of you are less aware of. Maintel has a long history in the world of contact centers, as some of you may know, but we have been developing software for over 20 years. What we are able to do is bring those experiences to bear on new problems. So we can help you work with any APIs, any products that you have, any integrations, and connect things that aren't already connected. So in much the same way as Joe and David have described in the earlier segments, things these days are built on APIs, they're built on connectivity, they're built on a lot of different solutions. And sometimes getting those things to work together can be difficult. The experience that we have in Maintel obviously covers a wide range of different solutions, products, and so on. And again, here, some shown on the slide: Salesforce, Maintel as a telephony provider, a whole bunch of different things that we've worked with in the past, and in fact that we use to work with in our own products and our own solutions. If you just move on to the next slide, as I can. There we go. I'm currently just putting out a few examples of things that we are working on and that we have delivered. So, for example, a well-known charity, we are currently working with a number of different pieces of the puzzle, with the charity themselves, with third-party web developers, with Salesforce, with a contact center solution provided by Maintel, and integrating all of those things so that it's easy from, hang on, that should not have gone yet, there we go. So it's easy from the website for them to understand what kind of reception they're going to get if they need to contact the contact center. Specifically, this is a charity which works with people who can be in a vulnerable state, and they want to ensure that they are providing up-to-the-minute information and not giving just generic content there. Also, another well-known large retailer, we've been engaged to connect Zendesk with other line of business applications they run. And that's an interesting project that's currently ongoing. Police force, again, just demonstrating here that we get involved with a wide variety of customers in lots of different verticals with lots of different solutions and lots of different integrations. So we've developed for them a custom desktop that sits there with their 999 operators and links a whole range of police force applications with their telephony solutions. We've also worked with them to find ways to reduce the impact on 101 and 999, particularly in the current climate, to ensure that the right calls get answered and that those that don't need to are deflected to other channels. So on top of that, we've also looked at a few concepts that may or may not be more applicable to a retail environment. So we've looked at various integrations and applications using QR codes, barcodes, and so on in a retail world. We have looked at developing and integrating with mobile applications and business systems, IoT devices, cameras, etc., as we've been seeing today, to figure out how we can offer additional value to our customers. That's pretty much my piece for today. So I'm just going to leave you with the fact that Maintel as a company is able to take some of these solutions, some of these wonderful products that are out there, and help you work with your own internal development, your own internal solutions to make it much more capable than it might otherwise be. And I'm now going to hand back over to James to hopefully cover any Q&A.
James, your turn. You're now muted.
User error. I fell into the same trap Tim just fell into. Sorry, everybody. So thanks for everyone's attention so far. I hope that you would concur that leveraging the power of a Meraki camera with the outcomes that can be generated using the Everyangle software can mean that we can really bring some really cool outcomes to the challenges that you guys get on a daily basis, not just the COVID-19 challenge that has brought us issues around social distancing, but there's a number of other key outcomes that I really think that can help you much better understand what happens in your environments, how you can build more loyalty, how we can get much more targeted offers out to your people. So I hope you found that of value. Within the Hangout section on the right-hand side of the chat bot, there is a couple of documents in there. There's a retail brochure from Maintel and a white paper on the COVID-19 issue using the social distancing application. So I would urge you all to download those or get in contact with me or your account manager to further some conversations on those. Regarding questions, before we get into the quiz, I'm just having a look now. So we've got a few questions on there. So what I'll do is I'll read the question out loud and then I will allocate who I think is best to answer. I may answer those myself. So Anita, if you can be quick with getting people off mute. So the first question we have is, can you please let us know what is included in the proof of value and what do you need to kick off any level of engagement? Martin Rowley from Maintel, can I ask you to pick that up, please?
Yep, no problem at all. Can you just repeat the question, James, please?
Yeah, of course.
So everyone hear it again.
Can you let us know what is included in a proof of value and what is needed to kick off the engagement?
So the first thing we will need will be a floor plan. An example was shown on David's presentation. That'd be the first thing. We will then set up a call with yourselves and we will go through a consultation for 30, 60 minutes with ourselves, Maintel, and David from Everyangle as well. Once we have reached your key outcomes and the success criteria, we will then come to your store. We will install the cameras and then we will set it up from there. All we will need is just, as Joe mentioned earlier, we will need some power, whether that's PoE or your usual power, and a connection to the outside world so we can reach the Meraki cloud.
Thank you. Not a problem at all. Thank you very much. Second question, which I think I can probably cover. So the second question for everyone's benefit is, can you use existing infrastructure or is it a rip and replace solution? So the really great thing for me about what we've talked about today is to leverage the Meraki cameras and the Everyangle software, your underlying LAN environment and Wi-Fi environment, regardless of vendor, has no impact or delay to what we've just talked about today. So as long as you can provide PoE or power to the actual camera, we can provide you any of the outcomes that we've talked about on today's webinar. So that was the second question. So yes, we can do some good stuff there. Third question, does the Maintel solution include a managed service and ongoing support services once installed? So I will take that one as well. So yes, the answer to that is yes. So Everyangle have been fully onboarded as a partner into Maintel. So all of the right contractual documents are in place, pricing frameworks are in place, and they have been engaged fully into our network operations center and our managed services department. So we have a known and documented process in place to be able to manage any support tickets that may arise. So yes, we absolutely can do that today. And the final question I have so far is, when Everyangle bring a new app to market, will Maintel add to this to their productized list of solutions? So I will answer this, but I'll also hand over to David just to top and tail it and keep me honest. But the answer to that is absolutely yes. I know David and his team are frantically working on new applications based on customer requirements regularly. So once they're out and productized, we will absolutely have the ability to bring those to our customer base. David, is there anything you would like to add to that question?
Yeah, I think just two or three things. You've covered off the main substantive point there, James. I think for everyone's benefit, just to clarify, our commercial model from licensing and how we deal with feature updates and capability updates is exactly the same as Meraki. So once you are under license, once you have a license for one of the applications, whether that's 1, 3, 5 year, whatever the case may be, just like with Meraki, all of the improvements that are delivered in any individual application, you get automatically, no additional cost. And we always like to kind of re-quote, we've heavily stolen, I suppose, that phrase from Meraki, that the day you get anything from Meraki is the worst it will ever be, because it's always going to get better every day thereafter. And it's exactly the same thing with Everyangle. Of course, there will be entirely new, distinctly different applications that we bring to market, but they will follow that same productized route so that they're rapidly deployable at scale with the fixed pricing. And insofar as possible, we're always going to be looking to build applications that can be delivered over the same existing set of cameras that a customer has. We're not constantly going back to the well trying to say, add more cameras, add more cameras. It's how can we actually help you do more with the existing that you have? And if there is something really useful, well then, okay, let's build a business case around deploying 1 or 2 additional cameras. But you should really clearly be able to see the value you're going to get in advance of ever doing that.
Thank you. I think that's it for the questions, unless anybody has any more. If there's any, just gives anybody a second to stick anything, final questions into the questions box. Just have a quick check on that now. No? Okay, so I'm going to launch into the final section, which is the quiz. So hopefully a bit of fun as well. So you've seen 3 presentations today. So you've seen Joe at Meraki, David at Everyangle, and Tim from Maintel. So what I've actually asked them to do, which they were all enamored with, was to all generate a question based on their content, and there'll be multiple choice answers. So what Anita is very kindly going to do for me in a minute is in the question section, Anita, you're going to embed a link, I believe.
That's now in the chat section.
Anita, it's in the chat section. Okay, so I'm corrected there. So in the chat section in a second, Anita's going to embed a link. So when you're all ready, click on the link, Well, I think all you have to do is input your name, answer the 3 questions and hit submit. And what we're going to do is, so the person that manages to get the 3 questions correctly answered in the quickest time is going to be the winner. And then between myself and your Maintel account manager and Martin, who I think some of you will know on the call today, we will reach out to you to discuss picking up a proof of value for you with support from Meraki and Everyangle to your desired location. So Anita, when you're ready, if you can embed the link, and we'll allow the participants to complete the quiz. Thank you.
Yeah, that's there. Off you go, everyone.
Be interesting to see who's quickest. Anita, if you can let me know when everyone's completed and you have the results, please.
Will do.
Thank you.
This is in, so keep going, everyone.
Quite excited to see the results. I thought we'd kept these questions fairly simple. I think we haven't made them too complicated. But I think most of them are manually in now. I think, Anita, is that correct? It's got a couple more.
Give it a couple more. Just give it 1 more minute. Everyone.
Okay. Let me know when you're comfortable, Anita.
Okay, I reckon that's enough time.
Okay. So let me just check what you put in the other box. Brilliant. Okay, so I am very pleased to confirm that Nick Duffield has been successful from Chapel House. So that's fantastic news. So Anita, have we got Nick's email and contact number from the registration so we can reach out to him following the webinar today?
We do indeed, yeah.
Brilliant. So Nick, congratulations. I hope you found, as well as everybody else in the session, it beneficial today and has opened your eyes to a number of the outcomes that we can help you deliver and overcome the challenges that you may face on a daily basis in your retail environment. So we will reach out to you after the session. So I'm going to draw this to a close. We've managed to stick to time, which I think is great news. So thank you all for participating. I hope you found it of value, and we will follow up with you after today's webinar. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much, everyone.